Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Stream Dialogue. So, the French media hysteria have died down a bit, and we've taken up our time to analyze what happened in the past 2 weeks. Of course, we made videos and so forth, exposing this destabilization of Mali and the Confederation of Sahel states. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a few things that happened throughout this week. First and foremost, during the media propaganda campaign by the French media, one of the things they said was that Bamako, capital of Mali, was threatened by Jnim, Al Qaeda, which is an Al Qaeda linked group. And one of the things they said is that Bamako, Mali, will be the first Al Qaeda governed state, like the first state captured by Al Qaeda. And we will say the short answer would be no, and the long answer will be hell no. But we know of a country that was captured, currently being governed by a known Al Qaeda leader, and that is Syria. We see this person traveling around the world, meeting presidents throughout the world. And a few years ago, they had a bounty on his head, dead, which means if he's captured alive or unalive, you will receive, I think it came up to $10 million, and recently that bounty have been removed. So we see the hypocrisy of these people. So no, Mali will never be governed by Al Qaeda, and Mali would not have been the first state to be governed by Al Qaeda. But ladies and gentlemen, why this blatant propaganda? And for most of us, we can see this is a blatant lie. So first of all, I want to say most of all, this was a psychological campaign against the population of Mali, against the population of the Confederation of Sahel States, but also against supporters of this revolutionary movement in Mali, in Africa, that people who support the revolutionary movement throughout the world, Africans online, whether they're in the diaspora, whether they're on the continent, and so forth. And also, this is mostly a campaign to show countries and people who want to take destiny in their own hand that if you choose to take this path, we will make this hard for you. We make it unbearable. Of course, also the populate they try to cause panic within the population of Mali, within the leadership of Mali, hoping for them to make some mistake, some collapse from within. But I think these people are living in la la land. There's no way that's going to happen. And remember, guys, I asked you online, those who aren't, you know, when it comes to African issues and things that happen in the African world, whether it's on the continent, whether it's in the diaspora, we don't have quality geopolitical and geostrategic analysts to do these things. So to talk about these things. So this is what we're trying to do, and we ask you, you know, we ask people to take their time, listen to people like us, not to panic. I know we can get really emotional, and that is the main point of this campaign, was to get illicit emotional response, whether it was from supporters of the revolution in the country or without the country, those who support. It's more of a political, more of a psychological game. But of course, this was a genuine destabilization attempt. The fuel crisis was supposed to cause panic. Government was supposed to collapse with the attack of these mercenary groups, terrorist group, JNM, and so forth. But ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at this. Mali is in a alliance, confederation with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And this alliance was birthed or was born through security agreement. mutual defense. So say for conversation's sake, Bamako was threatened by terrorists, by these mercenaries. Niger and Burkina Faso will definitely intervene to stop these terrorists, right? Did we see Niger and Burkina Faso mobilize their military and their security forces en masse to stop these terrorists that was so-called outside of Bamako? No. We see terrorists who made videos that say they will be in Bamako within 48 hours. And yes, they one of these terrorist leaders who made a video within 48 hours, the Malian military captured him. And they did what they did. They did what they did. But there was a few things that connected to this destabilization attempt. Of course, you see the media, but there was something else. The African Union came out with a statement. And I believe this was not just a statement that was made, uh, it was planned. This was a statement that was planned along with, this destabilization attempt. Meaning, it wasn't just recent that the African Union just decided that, oh, let's speak on the Malian issue. I believe that they were given instruction way in advance, maybe months, maybe weeks ago, to make their communication or press release or statement on the situation in Mali, which will cause more political, basically political, because the African Union cannot do anything else but words, but to give validation to this belief that the Malian authority is incompetent, it cannot manage the state is in crisis, it is in collapse. And with the fuel crisis, and I think this was a master stroke by the Malian authority. They solved the fuel crisis very quickly. Had this fuel crisis went on and on, prolong itself, this would have been a bit more challenging in terms of the, propaganda warfare. It would have been a bit more challenging because you will see the population will get a bit restless, and it will be more fuel, ironically, fuel to the imperialists to spread this propaganda that, the state is failing. So ladies and gentlemen, um the statement by the African Union that is calling for international support to help in Mali, this should it of course it is, out of place. First of all, the African Union have never supported Mali during its struggle, during its fight against terrorism. When Mali is actually winning and regaining its sovereignty, that the African Union decide to make these statements and against Mali. Remember, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger is suspended from the African Union. So always the African Union speaking on behalf of Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger while they are suspended. And remember, African Union is not necessarily engaging these states, and they did not engage Mali or Burkina Faso, Niger, to ask how can we assist, which means the African Union is speaking on behalf of the imperialist countries, namely France. And of course, another part of this destabilization attempt was that many many embassies within many countries within Mali issue a statement that their population will leave. But something funny has happened. They told their population to leave the country because the country, is threatened by terrorists. But these population, these people have not left. So ladies and gentlemen, we're in 2025 now. We're not in 2012, where, or in the 1950s, 1960s, 70s, 80s, where the Western media have the monopoly of communication, but they've used these tricks so many times that it has become useless. Another thing within the mediatic machine of France is that they have moved away from calling these groups, separatists or terrorists. They are calling them jihadists. And if you notice something, remember a few years ago, or even a few months ago, France was speaking more of this so-called Azawad movement, which wanted to divide Mali. What happened to the Azawad movement? The Azawad movement have been defeated. So these people were never so-called separatists. They were just carrying out the works of the imperialists by causing, chaos, mass unaliving of civilians and so forth, terrorist act. And yeah, Azawad is gone. So now the media is not speaking about Azawad and all that stuff. These forces have joined with Jenim. Jenim now is has been defeated. Even the French officials are admitting that Jenim does not have the military capability to occupy Bamako, which I think they're putting it lightly. Jenim does not have the military capacity to cause any significant damage. Yes, these are very annoying uh, pinprick attack. For example, the unaliving of an armed activist, like this lady that was, this young girl that was unalived by these thugs, an armed civilian that have no military value, nothing. And this reminds me of something that is happening in the world, or in the rest of the world. You can take Eastern Europe. I don't feel like mentioning these people in this video because it's not necessarily about them, but it's connected. How they operate, they like to do targeted unaliving, take people out that doesn't really have any military value. It's more of a propaganda war psychologically. If people who support the revolution might see their favorite TikToker get unalived by these thugs, you think these thugs have power, which they don't. Because if you did, you go and attack, you go and confront the military, farmer. Why don't you do that? So, ladies and gentlemen, Mali is not in crisis. The brief fuel crisis, shortage crisis has been solved by the government brilliantly, I might add, strategically and fast, which basically made all this media, the African Union and so forth, these embassies, these countries that told their citizens to leave, make them look stupid. And school have resumed in within 2 weeks. But even so, the Malian army is carrying out, it's offensive. It's offensive. It's neutralizing these groups. These groups have been weakened. It's like this was one of their main, probably their last push. This was a big push by these mercenaries to line up and attack these tank these tankers that are carrying fuel, and they've been neutralized in such large number that within their ranks is decimated. So now they can't, carry out anything. So the African Union release or statement holds no weight. It's definitely unprofessional. It is, but it is supposed to be expected. You know, ladies and gentlemen, we talk about the destruction of Libya. And sometimes many of us ask ourselves, what exactly did the African Union do? Now you know what the African Union did. The African Union, in my opinion, has been a co-conspirator, a co-belligerent, a cooperator with imperialism to destroy the African continent, to destroy any state that resists colonization, neo-colonization. Because the African Union, its predecessor OAU, was a compromise. I would say even a defeat to the defeat of the group who wanted a unified Africa. You know, those who push Pan Africa and people like uh, Sekou Toure, Kwame Nkrumah, and Nasser of Egypt and Bembela of Algeria. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ask that. Well, I don't ask. I'm telling people not to panic too much. You know, we get we you know we as we have this phobia every time there's a revolutionary African leader, whether he's in the diaspora, a black leader in the diaspora, or on the continent, they get taken out. So we tend to panic and just be timid every time something happens. Every time something happens, we tend to freak out, which give boost to these people who are carrying out these acts, and then you know this create this psychological panic within certain uh, population. So, ladies and gentlemen, everything is going well in Mali from our analysis. It's going well. Things are moving. And just to finish off, why this desperate push all of a sudden? They've tried. Ladies and gentlemen, the next Confederation meeting of the three heads of state is next month, December, in Bamako. That is why Mali is being targeted. France is terrified of these countries creating their own currency, which mean that will be the beginning, of the end of the France or the CFA franc. So France is targeting Mali because remember, General Assimi Goita is the president of the Confederation. And the Mali is seen to be basically the political uh, capital, or the first capital of the Confederation of Sahel States. So, ladies and gentlemen, they know what is coming in December. The more times goes on, the stronger this movement gets, and you can see there's pushback here and there around the continent. It's not where we'd like it to be. You see things happening in Madagascar and so forth. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.